Hey everybody, it's Tony George from Doc Sports, and every now and then we get us a big hitter in the house, and we've got one here today, my friend Matt Youmans from the VSIN Network. You know, if you're living under a rock or just haven't been informed in the betting arena, VSIN, VSIN.com, Vegas Sports Information Network, is a tool that you need in your arsenal on a daily basis. I don't care whether you're a $50 player or five dime player. VSiN is where you need to be to get the information from some of the sharpest minds in the industry. And my guest today has no equal in the business. An outstanding sports broadcaster, a handicapper, and fast food aficionado extraordinaire. Matt Youmans joins us here. Matt's show, VSiN Tonight, can be found every night on VSiN from 8 to 11 Central, along with Wes Reynolds. Matt, I know you just got back from Del Mar. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. It's great that we have college football this week, and looking forward to that. I appreciate you overhyping the intro. You didn't have to do that, but it's great that VSiN is also back under the control of the Musburger family, right? And out of the DraftKings umbrella, even though we still have some valuable contributors from DraftKings on the network. It's going to be a different era this season, and looking forward to the Circa Friday Football Invitational as well. That's, I think, become the most popular show on the network during football season. We're going to have 25 handicappers competing with their top plays each Friday night, and you can find all that stuff at vsin.com. And Tony, it's great to be on with you today. I've obviously been friends with you and guys like Scott Spreitzer for a long time at Docs.
Yeah, I know you and Scott. I saw some pictures you recently at the Celebration of Life for Dave Koken, a huge loss to the industry, one of the original OGs, and I'm sure that was a happy and sad occasion at the same time down there at your old watering hole Oasis down there. A lot of people turned out for that, Matt.
Yeah, I think we had about 50 people showed up. It was probably, if I had to say, 46 guys and 4 women. How about that? So I brought one of the women who showed up. So that was a great night, though. You know, that's why I said it was not sad. It was meant to be a celebration of Dave Koken's life. He handled it like a champ in the last year. He did not complain. He did not whine. You know, he went out like a winner. And Dave was a Hall of Famer, really, as a broadcaster, as a handicapper. And it was so great to work with him and, you know, guys like Scott Spreitzer on radio and TV for so many years. So it's always sad when somebody like that passes away, but I think the best way to handle that is to throw a party and everybody have a good time.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I got into radio, my radio career by accident, and I had no experience in radio. I'd won a small contest out there in Vegas in the early 90s. And I was down at the Nugget, and the guy said, "Man, they want to interview you over the Stardust line, at the Stardust line." And I'll tell you how naive I was. I go, "What the hell's the Stardust line?" He goes, "Oh, they got a radio studio over there in the Stardust, you know." And I wasn't in this business yet. This is kind of what got me in the business. So I go over. Obviously I knew what the Stardust was, and the line originated there. So I go over there, walk in there, and there's 2 guys in there. Dave Koken, one of them. It was a Sunday late afternoon. Anyway, long story short, I was just scared to death. All the electronics, and I'd never done radio, and I had won this contest. I came out there on a golf junket back in August and entered it just on a fluke with my buddies. You know, I was kind of making book back in Lincoln, Nebraska at the time. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, long story short, I remember he looked at me, he goes, "Hey, kid, settle down. It's just me and you talking sports like we're having a drink at the bar." That's what he said to me. And that was Dave. It just made you feel at home. And I've known Dave for ever since then. You know, we weren't best friends. I know him and Scott Spreitzer were best buddies and talked and text 15 times a day. But at the end of the day, I always respected Dave and looked up to him. And a horrible loss for the community nonetheless. But let's get on to bigger and brighter things. And I was going to mention, before we get to a couple of Matt's best bets on some season win totals, college and pro football, Again, you can find Matt at VSIN every night live right there. Go subscribe, get these so you can watch him and Wes do their things. And by the way, some of the best write-ups and breakdowns and picks for the PGA Tour come from both Matt and Wes over there. I read them, I use them as part of my handicapping, and I was wanting to get really hard last week on Billy Horschel for a top 20 pick at plus 125, and I went and I had that circled and did a write-up, and I went over and read Wes's write-up on that particular. He had him as a long shot to win it, but nonetheless, not only a top 20 at plus 125, I sprinkled a little bit on the top 10 too, and he came in the 10th place. But Matt, you mentioned and alluded to the Friday night invitational, which I think you've got about 8 guys already announced. I'm sending you like 50 cases of Butterburgers from Culver's here in Kansas City, trying to weasel my way in there one of these days. I'll keep sending them. So I got a Culver's 3.4 miles from my house. That's why I've gained 4 pounds back here in Kansas City this summer. I'm headed back out next week. But there's a way that the average Joe, the guys that are watching this, could still get in on that contest and go piss in the tall with the big dogs. Tell folks how that works.
Yeah, I sure will. And by the way, no bribes are accepted. I've had seriously over the last couple of years, I've had guys try to offer me bribes. Like, if I win, I'll give you half the money. Or I said, look, you're immediately eliminated. I can't even entertain the idea that you offered a bribe and I can't take it. I mean, seriously, you got to, first thing in this industry, number one thing you always have to protect is your credibility. And when somebody starts talking about, I'll give you this or this to let me in the contest, there's zero chance I'm going to let that person in the contest. I know you're joking about the Culver's Butterburgers, but I have been offered bribes to get in the contest, and that doesn't fly. And, that's a good way to sink your career. But, I will say that the great thing about this, the first year we did this contest, I based this off the Stardust Invitational and the Stardust line. When I first got to the town in August of 2000, the Stardust line was huge, and I listened to it every Friday night. And I went over to the Stardust Sportsbook for the Invitational on Fridays whenever I could. And I thought that was just an awesome event. It was great for the sports betting community. And Dave Koken was obviously a huge part of the Stardust line. And then the Stardust Invitational had some, it was a mix of sharp handicappers and bettors and some celebrities and things like that. And I think there is a celebrity element that works in a contest like this. You don't want too many of them, maybe just a couple. But people do want to see, how a guy like back in the day, like Mayor Oscar Goodman is going to fare against some of the sharps or things like that. So I throw in a couple media personalities with all the sharp bettors. And I think it's a good mix. We're going to expand the field to 25 contestants this year because we seriously have about 300 guys lobbying for spots, and that's great. I'm happy that you and so many people went in the contest that's become popular because the first year, it was not actually that easy to fill out the field of 16 because nobody really understood what we were doing. We're going to do this every Friday nights. Okay, I guess I'll be in it if you want me in it. And now we got guys lobbying it hard, begging for spots to be in, so that's great. The average Joe, we're going to pick one person who's not in sports media, sports handicapping, and we're taking applications. Actually, the deadline passed on Sunday night, but we got more than 200 applications for the average Joe. And I got to tell you, I spent about 2 hours reading through about 50 of them last night. Very impressive, some of the applications we're getting from people stating why they belong in the contest. And it's great to know that you have that many intelligent listeners and viewers out there who want to be a part of a contest like that, right? Because Tony, when I watch shows and I don't watch them, I'm just flipping channels or I'm aware they're on, the hot take shows that involve like Screamin' A. Smith or Skip, on ESPN or FS1, you always feel like the lowest common denominator is watching those shows. Who the hell would watch these shows with these dumb topics that they throw out there every day on these talk shows on ESPN? And, at Docs, you're going to attract serious sports bettors, guys who are sharpest in the industry or looking to learn. And at VSIN, I think that's what I've figured out from reading all these applications and obviously through the years meeting people who come out to our studio at South Point or Circa. is that we have a lot of, I would say serious sports bettors or people who are eager to learn about sports, want to be good at it, who are intelligent people, who are listeners and viewers, and that's great because I feel like we don't have a lot of the idiots that kind of comprise the audience of ESPN and FS1 and some of those dumb talk shows like that. So the average Joe is going to be selected through all these applications of Bill 80, our COO, and I read. I'm going to give Bill a list of about 25 that are my favorites, and then we'll compare his list, see how many we match on, whittle down the field, pick the average Joe. Last year, I was meeting average Joe candidates outside the studio at Circa. I invited about 10 or 12 guys to come by, met them, had a lot of quality candidates, could have picked any one of them. But Weston Stratman from Nashville, Tennessee, was a guy that impressed me. And I had to meet Derek Stevens and Bill 80. They liked him, so we put him in, and he finished fourth in the contest. So the average Joe did well. Tony, here's what we're thinking about doing, too, because we have so much interest, is that with all these applications, we're going to try to start a separate average Joe contest on the website on vsin.com, where everybody who applied for a spot can get in this. And you can win prizes Derek Stevens is going to give away. You can win a spot in the next year's tournament, things like that. Because when you have 200 plus applications for average Joe and you can only pick one, you're going to have a lot of people ticked off that they can't be in, right? Just like I've got 24 spots I'm going to award to the Circa Friday Football Invitational. And out of that, I probably know 75 to 100 guys who are very qualified, guys and women. We're going to have a woman or two in the field this year too, who deserve to be in the tournament, but you can't pick them all. You can't put everybody in, and some people are going to be irritated. Well, maybe next year that person gets a shot or whatever. So you don't want to tick people off, and you want to give everybody a fair opportunity to win things like this. So I think we're going to try to set up a separate average Joe contest that we can get several hundred entrants in. We'll see how that plays out. But as you know, we all love football contests, right? We all love, first and foremost, handicapping football, betting football, watching it. But the football contests are awesome. And the more the better. The Stardust Invitational was the first one I really got into when I came to Vegas. So trying to recreate something like that, hopefully bigger and better. And Derek Stevens has got the two biggest football contests in the world going at Circa, right? The Survivor and the Million was $16 million guaranteed. And if you believe in yourself as a football handicapper, you better be in both of those contests.
Well, I'm coming back out to Vegas for an extended period of time. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I think I might make a spot on VSIN with you Friday night. And I'm coming out specifically for contest weekend, doing some radio row stuff and meeting a lot of friends and clients and industry types. I missed the bet bash, so I had some stuff tight. I had some family stuff here, but I'll be out there for 2-3 weeks minimum for football, but I'll be out there for that this weekend. Exciting. I think that's extremely attractive idea. Pretty much having a play-in tournament. Whoever wins the tournament, first prize is probably a nice prize, but the biggest prize is getting in the tournament next year, and that should intrigue some people. That's why you tune in to Matt's show every Friday night, and they discuss some of the best bets and stuff on Friday night from that tournament. All kinds of advantages to tune in there to him and Wes each and every Friday night. I know, Matt, you're fired up. We got kind of an unimpressive slate of games this weekend to open up college football in week 0. We're into week 3 of the NFL preseason, which, there's some intriguing things kind of going on there. But as we look to the futures this year, and I watch your show, buddy, and I know I'm a Husker fan and I'm a Chiefs fan, and I've been hearing a lot of enthusiasm for the Chargers and the Raiders on your end. Discuss your thoughts on the AFC West a little bit. Maybe you've got a win total out of that division.
I do, and my win total out of that division has been the same since early June, and that's Chargers over 8.5. And I was not fired up to hear about Justin Herbert's plantar fasciitis issue. I've had that myself 2 or 3 times, and it's a very painful foot injury. But you can get over it in 2 or 3 weeks. So I was optimistic Herbert's going to be okay by week 1. I know he was out on the practice field Monday. He was in basketball shoes not cleats, but that's okay. We still got 2.5 weeks here before the season opens. So the Herbert injury is a bit of a scare because if you've watched the Chargers in the preseason, their backup quarterbacks are the worst. They're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere without Justin Herbert. So he's got to be healthy, and if he's not, you're going to get screwed. But hopefully, I think that's the type. I know a lot of pessimists are saying, "Hey, that's the type of injury that can linger." Having had that injury three times myself, twice I was able to get rid of it. Third time it lingered, but Tony, I was not getting the best health care or taking the best care of myself, and Justin Herbert's going to get A+
Yeah.
care, and I think he's going to be ready to go. So I'm not going to back off the Chargers. That's the bottom line here. I'm not backing off the Chargers over 8.5 because I really believe Jim Harbaugh inherited an ideal situation here. You got an elite quarterback. You've got a last place schedule. Chargers went 5-12 last season. They really packed it in down the stretch when Brandon Staley was fired and they got blown out by the Raiders. But when you look at the last place schedule that Harbaugh inherits, Panthers, Titans, Patriots, Cardinals. All right, you should win all 4 of those games, at least 3 of the 4 games. And not only that, you're playing the Broncos twice and the Raiders twice. And it's, by my grade, one of the 3 easiest schedules in the NFL. You've got 2 of the best young offensive tackles in the league, and Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, who was the number 5 pick out of Notre Dame in this year's draft. I think a lot of handicappers kind of obsess a little bit too much about big names, and they say, well, they lost Mike Williams, they lost Keenan Allen. Those guys were injured a lot, weren't reliable in terms of being on the field, and some of these young receivers like Josh Palmer, Lad McConkey, they bring DJ Shark. I think these guys are going to be very productive, actually, for Justin Herbert. And Jim Harbaugh is going to kind of build this as a mirror image to what he did with Michigan, where you're going to have a big, powerful offensive line.
Yeah.
You're going to have a power running attack with 2 studs in the backfield. And, the Chargers now with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and that rookie Kamani Badal, who's going to kind of fill that third down back role as a receiver out of the backfield. I think they're going to be fine. Actually, they got plenty of playmakers for Herbert. Is the defense good enough? Can you keep Joey Bosa healthy? Khalil Mack? I'm not quite sure about that, but you do have an all-pro safety in Derwin James. You got a top corner in Asante Samuel Jr. Junior Colson, the Michigan linebacker who was a third-round draft pick, I think is going to step in and start. So there are a lot of things about this Chargers team I like, and the Chiefs may not be as motivated to win the most games in the regular season. Their focus is on the three-peat. They know they can win on the road in the playoffs. They can beat anybody in the playoffs. While I said the Chargers have one of the 3 easiest schedules in the NFL, the Chiefs have one of the 3 toughest schedules. And they play, as you know, on every day of the week but Tuesday, right? It's a really quirky schedule where you play on 6 different days of the week, and it's a very difficult schedule. I think the Chargers can put some heat on the Chiefs, and I definitely like them to go over 8.5, win 9 or 10 games. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but I think the Chargers are going to make the Chiefs sweat a little bit in the AFC West, and I can't say the same thing for the Raiders and the Broncos. So I think it's a 2-horse race in that division.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm much along the same thought process with Kansas City. How motivated are they going to be to win 12 or 13, 14 games?
Mm-hmm.
Could they be capable of it if it all comes
Sure.
together? Yeah. But their motivation is to win their division. And, Patrick Mahomes, look at his record in division games. I think he's had 5 losses his entire career against AFC West opponents, something like that, 5 or 6. And at day's end, I'm not worried about the Raiders as a Chiefs fan. I'm not worried about the Broncos. I'm not putting a lot of stock in the preseason and Bo Nix looking like a world champion. I mean, because it's the preseason. Right. I think that's let's pump the brakes on that a minute. But I do think Kansas City's goal is to win their division. That puts them in the playoffs, and they go do their thing and try and stay healthy. I do think their receiving core is going to be better. I'm concerned about the injury right out of the gate to Hollywood Brown. They're bragging up Worthy here, but he's a rookie, and there's going to be a learning curve. But Rice showed some promise last year if we keep him out of jail. He's going to be a good wide receiver for him. And of course, I don't think Kelsey's on the downside of a career yet, but he definitely has peaked. And sooner or later, that age and Taylor Swift's going to take its toll on him. But, um, you know, um, I with you on the Chargers. I was a little concerned, Eckler, Allen, Williams, new coaching staff. Of course, a new coaching staff was needed. Anything's an improvement over
Yeah.
Staley. That guy, couldn't get a lap dance to Spearmint Rhino with a fistful of hundreds. So I don't know what he was doing coaching a football team. Some of the most bonehead calls you're ever going to make. And you remember Jim Harbaugh took a team to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback. Jim Harbaugh knows how to put a team together and spread the responsibilities around and have quarterbacks that, like J.J. McCarthy was, good. He doesn't ask a whole lot out of them. The game plan, the system he has in place works. And, I think a lot of people thinks he's going to fall on his face like a, dog turd in the cantaloupe patch. And I don't see it. I think he's going to make a big difference. And I guess before we get out of this division, maybe kick around one other here, maybe in college or whatever. Your thoughts on the Raiders naming the starting quarterback? You're out there in Las Vegas, all the local media and follow those teams. Matt, your thoughts on Gordon Minshew getting the nod over O'Connell?
Yeah, sure. I actually went to the Cowboys Raiders game Saturday night before I went down to San Diego, and I wanted to see both quarterbacks up close again. And aside from one deep ball, Gardner Minshew looked terrible in the first half. In fact, I thought it was borderline horrendous in the first half. And I've been saying for at least 6 weeks that Minshew is going to win the starting quarterback job. It always made the most sense to me that Minshew was going to be the starter because Raiders open on the road against the Chargers and the Ravens. And you have the Harbaugh brothers back-to-back to open the season. Two good defenses, too, especially in terms of pass rushers. You want a more mobile quarterback. You want a more experienced quarterback, and that's Minshew. I mean, you sign the guy for a 2-year, $25 million contract. You got to use him. And I always thought Minshew would win the job at the start of the season. Now, if we get through 6 games and the Raiders are 2-4, then they might make a quarterback switch and go back to O'Connell, right? But you want the more mobile quarterback, the more experienced guy to give you a chance to get off to a good start. And who knows, maybe that Minshew magic kicks in and the Raiders get off to a surprisingly good start. I thought, and I had 2 bets on Minshew to be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Raiders, and he was an underdog. I had a plus 115 and plus 105. And at halftime, I said, I think he's going to blow this job. He looked terrible in the first half, and O'Connell came out, and he looked pretty efficient. He was hitting on a lot of – the thing with O'Connell, he's – without Devontae Adams out there, he's not hitting any deep balls. It's all 5- and 10-yard throws. And finally, they jumped a route at the end. His last pass of the night was picked off, and it turned into a pick 6. But that's what tends to happen when you throw all 5- and 10-yard quick hitters. Eventually, somebody's going to jump her out and pick one off. And I think that's where O'Connell actually lost the job, and they said, all right, let's give it to Minshew. And they might have been leaning that direction anyway. That always made the most sense to me. The Raiders have a lot of offensive talent. I don't know if their offensive line's good enough, but Zamir White's going to be a breakout candidate at running back. They got some big-time wide receivers and tight ends. They actually have some serious skill position talent. But do they have the quarterback who can pull the trigger and make this whole thing work? How effective is Antonio Pierce going to be as a head coach? It was kind of riding the wave of emotion last year when he took over and all the players wanted to play hard for him, wanted him to get the job. The schedule broke right where they played a bunch of beatable teams with weak quarterbacks, and they went 5-4, I think, down the stretch for Pierce, and he gets the job. So to me, a lot of questions still about the Raiders and Minshew, even though I think it was the right call to give him the job. And also, as far as the Broncos, I agree with what you said. Bo Nix started 60 games in college, right, and played a lot of big games. He should be ready to step in and start and play well in the NFL. That said, let's not get carried away with what he was playing against Colts backups and Packers backups the last 2 weeks. And Sean Payton's no fool. He knew when to throw Bo Nix in there to make him look good, right? That's his hand-picked quarterback. Payton's got a big ego. He wants his guy to look good. We're going to have to see Bo Nix do it. The regular season and the preseason, two totally different animals. In the preseason, you're not facing blitzes or complex coverages or disguised coverages. Bo Nix is going to see a totally different defenses when he gets to the regular season, and we're going to see him struggle, especially on that road in Seattle in the opener. Broncos are a long way away. When you look at the two deep, there's not a lot of talent on that Denver team. Now, the Raiders have some talent, but I'm not sure the Raiders can put it together either. So the Chargers are the one team, I think, with Jim Harbaugh. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be effective on the ground. That's going to set up Justin Herbert, who's an elite quarterback, to do his thing and be more efficient. And I think Harbaugh is going to finally turn Herbert into a winner. Now, it's too much to think that the Chargers can, be in the AFC Championship game in the first season. You got to build this thing up. But when you got a last place schedule, you can turn things around in the win-loss column pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's one thing about beating a team that's dominated your division, Kansas City. What's the best way to beat them? Keep them off the field. Harbaugh will do that running the football. And Kansas City's always been a little suspect to the run. So if he can eat some clock, the longer you keep Mahomes off the field and don't let him develop any chemistry or get a rhythm going, working up that froth a little bit, they like to do. Because one thing Andy Reid did last year is he extended drives. He used the running game a lot more than he did in previous years, realizing that, putting that defense on the field for, 65, 70% of the game, because you have a quick strike offense, it wasn't paying dividends. It paid dividends last year when he ran the ball a lot more effectively. And Pacheco was kind of a breakout star for them. A nice find in the 5th round of the draft, and a great running back, and McKinnon, a good third down back. And I thought he did a real nice job of mixing in his running backs in situations where they were effective. And if he does that again this year, I think they're going to be a contender. But definitely, I do agree with you on the Chargers and that Herbert injury. I'll agree with you as long as he doesn't go down, because Easton Stick and these guys, they can't even get. I mean, it looks like at times when they look like they haven't played organized football before. I mean, it does. It's that big of a drop off. And so that's going to be a concern for them. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them pick, if they can get somebody during the regular season, to bring somebody in there, because the backups right now, that's one thing they're walking away from camp. We need a better backup. I mean, we got Carson Wentz, which, Carson Wentz has kind of been a bust since back in the day, but Kansas City has a capable backup quarterback with starting experience. I don't see the Chargers having that right now, and I think they're probably going to do something to address that too, Matt.
Tony, a quick comment on that as well, because you look across the league right now, and unders are 26-6 in the preseason through 2 weeks. You're seeing some pathetic quarterback play across the league from these backups. And in fact, Carson Wentz was pretty bad for the Chiefs over the weekend. I watched that game, and I said, man, Carson Wentz getting worse every time I see him. And I'm sure that's not lost on Andy Reid. What was wrong with Carson Wentz? He looks just as bad as some of these other backups I'm watching. But when you're 26-6 to the under through 2 weeks in the preseason, it tells you there's not many quarterbacks out there moving offenses. Now, the play calling's been conservative, but the quarterback play's been poor. And I was saying the same thing about Jim Harbaugh with these backup quarterbacks, Easton Stick, Luis Perez, the guys from North Dakota State and Texas A&M Commerce who won a lot at small colleges, but you throw them out here in the NFL and they look like they're totally out of their league. They don't belong. I've got to imagine Harbaugh sees the same thing and says, we can't go into the season with these type of backup quarterbacks. So who's out there? Who can you go get? I'm not really sure. I see a lot of teams. I was going through some of the depth charts for quarterback. The Bills are actually going to start Ben DiNucci this week in the preseason game, and they just signed Anthony Brown, who was released by the Raiders. Those are the two quarterbacks the Bills have to go with in a preseason game in week 3. And the Panthers, I believe, are going to go with Jack Plummer, pretty much the whole way, an undrafted free agent out of Louisville. And they haven't played Bryce Young yet in the preseason. The Bills have scored a total of 15 points in 2 preseason games. And there's been a lot of teams out there like that who just aren't moving the ball. That's why I said there are not a lot of options for Harbaugh to look around for a backup quarterback. Do you sign Ryan Tannehill off the street? Kind of like the the Browns were lucky with Joe Flacco last year in
Yeah.
that sort of situation. I guess there's a few guys, but Harbaugh's got to find somebody because, hey, look, I got some Chargers over 8.5 futures riding on this. If Herbert goes down, they are screwed. They're not going to win without Herbert.
Yeah. That's true. And I thought maybe the first week 12-4 to the under in week 1 preseason games. You always figure the defense is always a little ahead of the offense, and then it was kind of more of the same the next week. And I'm like, man, I thought the same thing. The level of play at quarterback is just not there. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see that continue this weekend as well in week 3. Let's turn our attention to college football, and we're getting long in the tooth here. We got Matt Youmans on board here from VSIN, host of VSIN Tonight, 8 to 11 Central, each and every night. Be sure and tune in to him and Wes Reynolds' show. It's one of the best there is out there when it comes to sports gaming content. They talk about in-game stuff as the games are going on as well at night, so it's always a great watch for you. Be sure and check them out on VSIN.com. Get subscribed over there and get hooked up. I've been a member since day one. And back in the fold with the Musburgers that he alluded to earlier. And Matt, the college football season is right around the corner. I was going to ask you a question. The SEC and the Big Ten have made major changes this year, and I know you follow the Big Ten. You're a Purdue guy. The impact of these teams like USC and Oregon coming in there, Oregon being highly touted as the top 3 team in the country. The SEC, I never thought I'd see this. Alabama has two less win totals than what Texas does, and Texas just joining that conference. Your thoughts on that 10.5 number with Texas leaving what they've always known and going to the SEC now and playing in, so that's a tough hombre, the SEC. Is Texas ready for them this year and win 10.5 games and be a major player? I think Oklahoma's going to have some problems this year. We can put them on the back burner. They're going to have some problems this year. But Texas, are they going to get in there and make a big splash right out of the gate?
Well, Tony, it's like when you're sitting at the blackjack table and the guy next to you gets dealt an ace and you get dealt a 4, right? And this happens over and over. And he's getting dealt better cards than you are. The Sooners got dealt a terrible scheduling card by the Big 12, and Texas got an ace, right? The Longhorns drew an ideal schedule this season for the most part, and Oklahoma much more difficult. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be anywhere in contention. Texas, I can only bet under 10.5. I have not played the win total, but I don't trust the Quinn Ewers, Steve Sarkisian combo. They drove Ewers drove the Longhorns offense down to the 12-yard line, the final seconds of that college football playoff semi against Washington. And then they had one really bad play call, 3 poorly executed passes. And you're like, what just happened? I don't trust those 2 guys to get the Longhorns over the top. And they've also had 2 serious running back injuries already in camp. So their top 2 running backs are done for the season. Running back depth can be replenished, and that's a position you don't worry too much about. I just don't trust Texas to go 11-1. I'm not playing over 10.5. Big Ten looks like it's bigger and better than ever, with Oregon stepping in as a legit national championship contender. And Dan Lanning is a former SEC coach, right? He's got the background with Georgia, Alabama, and those coaching staffs. And Dan Lanning is building the Oregon program like an SEC team or a Big Ten team. They're going to be physical. They're going to be able to step in right away and compete, go toe-to-toe with Ohio State, Michigan, whoever else in that conference. And that's why I think Oregon's got a lot of upside. Not only that, you get a former Oklahoma quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who transfers in, and he's got a ton of experience. I think Oregon's, when I was doing my power ratings, I had Oregon and Ohio State basically in a dead heat right there with Georgia. So I give the Ducks a great shot. Plus, they get Ohio State as a home game on October 12th. Think about that weekend in the Big Ten. Penn State at USC, Ohio State at Oregon, and there's a bunch of other good games there. don't if your friend has a wedding on October 12th, tell him you can't go because there's so many big college football games on that Saturday. There's no freaking way. If somebody in my
Yeah.
family were getting married, I'd say I can't make it. I got
Yeah.
college football to watch that day. So Oregon's going to be fine, right there to compete for the Big Ten title, college football playoff. I'm not quite as sold on Sark and the Ewers and the Longhorns, but Tony, just in the big picture, I liked it when the Big Ten expanded, and bringing in great football schools like Penn State and Nebraska. And I don't like what's happening in college football in general now, where you're getting these 18-team conferences, probably soon to be 20-team conferences. These leagues are too big. And, I hate to see the destruction of the Pac-12 the way it's happened, but there's nothing we can do about it. I expect when we get to the playoff, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 SEC teams, 3 or 4 Big Ten teams, and that's going to comprise 7 of 12 playoff teams. But I think Penn State is a good bet to be a playoff team out of the Big Ten. I think Ole Miss is a good bet to be a playoff team out of the SEC. And those are a couple bets I have made. Also, if you want to talk win totals out of the Big Ten for a minute, I played Michigan under 9, and I like this one a lot. And Texas plays at Michigan early in the season, and that's a game that the Longhorns absolutely have to win. But Wolverines play 3 top 5 preseason opponents: Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. If they lose those 3 and win all the other games, run the table, they're going to finish 9-3, best case scenario. I don't even see that happening. This is a Michigan team that lost 13 players to the NFL draft, the most of any program in college. You lose Jim Harbaugh and most of his coaching staff to the NFL. You've got an unproven quarterback, offensive line, wide receivers, not many starters back on either side of the ball. I think a 10-win season for Michigan is extremely unrealistic. And when you bet a win total like that, under 9, and you feel like you're either going to push it or win it, that's a pretty good bet.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger bets I made, Matt, was Michigan under. They lost. And you lose not only, your quarterback, your running back, this, that, and the other to get them to the national title. Well, you say that about a lot of teams. Your quarterback was J.J. McCarthy, and your running back was Corum. I mean, these guys are rock star studs. I mean, it's not like, well, and they're not reloading. They're not Alabama, and losing Harbaugh was a big deal. I also bet under on Texas, one of my bets. I did bet over on I'm going to be high on Ole Miss this year. I think they did well in the portal. Kiffin always does well in the portal. They got a great quarterback. Halfway favorable schedule. And I like that team a lot. I think they could be a playoff team as well, man. I really like that team. I'm not a huge Lane Kiffin fan, but at the end of the day, he's got a hell of a team. I think he's got all the tools to get it done this year and really make some noise in that conference. But the bad thing that you alluded to was I was sick about the Pac-12 last year. They have 6 or 7 teams at one point in the top 25. And I said, I kept saying, this is a conference that's not even going to be around next year. And they probably had 4 or 5 of the best quarterbacks in the country in the conference. You have Penix and Williams and Nix. I mean, you just go down and what was it? Ward from Washington State was unbelievable to watch. I mean, they had that's just a shame, but money is the root of all evil, and boy, it's a big cash grab right now in college football, and us purists that like the conferences and the way things really should be, we're all. I'm a little pissed off about it, honestly.
Yeah, it's just I mean, as a longtime college football fan, kind of an old school guy. Texas and Oklahoma deserve to be in the Big 12. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington should be in the Pac-12. There's no reason to bust up these conferences like this just for, the greed of chasing a little bit more money and things like that. So anyway, we have to get over that, right? And just handicap the current system. And I think it is good finally that we have an expanded playoff, more teams get invited and get a chance. To me, it was completely ridiculous for so many years that you had 2 teams that had a shot to get it. Even 4 teams was ridiculous. So the fact that the playoff has expanded, I guess that is a good thing now.
Matt Youmans, before I let you go, any last best bet for anybody, or they need to tune in Friday night and catch you live, or tune in every night at VSIN and catch you live and get one?
I don't expect anyone to tune in every night. Whenever you can, that's great. We're there, vsin.com. You can watch us on YouTube TV, and we'll be doing the Friday night contest, which is going to be a big event for us this season. And just like you, I'm fired up for football season. We're ready for it to get here now because we got college games on the board we're going to watch this week, and it's here. I've been betting a lot of this NFL preseason. Even though the games have been bad, it's great to cash tickets on football. So off to a good start, and looking forward to more. Tony, I'll see you in the VSIN studio at Circa on Friday night, and you'll roll in with some of your best bets for the football season.
We sure will. He's Matt Youmans, ladies and gentlemen. Catch him on VSIN, one of the sharpest cats in the industry, a must-see TV show each and every, and they got replays over there at VSIN too. I know it's late at night for some of you East Coaster sports fanatics. They got replays each and every day. You can catch his action, so be sure and check that out. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Find me each and every day over at DocSports.com. Be sure and check out our YouTube channel where this show is playing at. And we'll see you next time.